Hey guys, I was thinking maybe I should do some tactics, just like as a sort of guide or just like a let's play sort of kind of feeling where I do tactics, explain my thought process, how I approach them, and all sort of stuff like that. And and then you guys can either work along with me or just like sort of, see how people do tactics in general. Of course, I'm not like the ultimate role model. This is just sort of how I've been doing tactics for a long time now and what I've found to work. And if it doesn't work for you, of course, you do what you do, but this is just what works for me, the sort of the strategies I use to get the most out of tactics and, just how I practice in general. See, back when I used to play pretty regularly, I would do like 30 a day. Uh, on chess.com back when they didn't have all this membership and shit, whatever. But yeah, pretty much, well, they did have a membership back then, but it wasn't as like, greedy as it is nowadays. Nowadays, you can barely do tactics ever. Like, dude, back then you could just do them for free. Like, I don't know, like 10, 15, like a day for free, even without an account. But like nowadays, it's just like you get three maximum or whatnot. So I recommend lead chess. Lead chess is really nice. In terms of difficulties and whatnot, you just always want to be unrated. You can have normal, harder, easier, all this works. I do not recommend hardest because it is just like impossibly hard. I don't know why, but like I just can't. I just cannot do that. If you guys are down for the challenge, go for it, but I just recommend harder or normal, just, on a day-to-day basis. Because once you get here, it's like computer level stuff. I don't know. It might just be a skill issue on my part. But anyway, let's get going. So let's take a look at this tactic. Right now, the first thing I do is I just like take a look at the whole position and just, try to figure out what the goal of the tactic is. Of course, like you can count material, you can just look at this, but from general intuition, this sort of looks like a checkmate or some sort of using the king to win material of some sort. It looks like we might be able to win this bishop somehow by something like this. This is like my first impressions. Of course, let's count the material. We are down a point, right? Because we're down a minor piece, but we are up 2 pawns. So in other words, the material is about even, but there is much to gain. Okay, so now what do we do? Well, the first thing you do, generally always, when you consider tactics, and I mentioned this in my uh consciousness video if you guys want to check that out about like different modes you are in when you play a chess game, so that you can have positional mode like when you're thinking what to play, logistics and all that stuff, and then you're in tactic mode like the go kill mode. And in this mode we should always be in this sort of mode, the go kill mode, when we're doing tactics. And in this case, the first thing you do when you're in tactics mode is you look at checks, captures, and threats in that order: checks, captures, and threats. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at checks, captures, and threats. Of course, none of the checks here make any sense. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. So we can sort of just eliminate those immediately. Now we're looking at captures, and it doesn't look like I have any good captures. I could take this if I wanted to, but that would be really stupid. Same as this. So now we're back to threats, and threats are very difficult to determine because threats are sort of, nebulous. They're sort of like, what is a threat? Well, a threat is anything that, well, how I like to describe a threat is anything that makes it so that you can check or capture next turn. Um, or like, actually that's a pretty bad explanation, but pretty much a threat is anything that like, yeah, you get the point. Like the threat is pretty vague, but the idea is you need to find candidate moves that sort of make sense in sort of this position. And these moves, I'm just going to give examples. It's probably easier with an example. Something like here, maybe I don't know, like that's literally the only thing I see here, honestly. Um, maybe something, dude. There's only one move here. It's this bishop move because think about it. If you move the queen anywhere, he just takes your bishop for free and you lose. And nothing, no sort of counterplay works here, like nothing can work. So there's only one real move here, is to go queen here. Okay, so let's just say this is our candidate move. We picked our candidate move after considering checks, captures, and threats. This is our threat. Now we consider what our opponent's gonna do. Well, our opponent has several ideas, right? First of all, he can move his bishop, go somewhere, but then that leads to a pretty easy way to finish him off. You can do anything you want. You can check him here, queen trades, and then take the bishop. You can check him here, queen blocks, check him here, rook lift, takes, and it's just terrible for him. This sort of discovery here is very bad for our opponent. So he's probably not going to move his bishop. And then what else does he have? Well, he can block, but he loses his bishop. So what can he do? He needs to get rid of this threat and this threat at the same time. So he might play something like queen g4. Okay, queen g4 looks like a promising move from our opponent's perspective. Let's consider what we do next. Well, if he goes queen g4, any discovery doesn't really work. Like, I mean, the double check, we just take his bishop. He just takes our bishop, I mean. Any check, trades, and we lose, it's just not good. Same, we can't take this anymore. So then what do we do? Well, let's consider. Well, the reason why this is a problem is because let me think. I actually don't even know the solution to the tactic, but I'm just sort of thinking off the top of my head. Well, let's think. Well, if we take him, we go nowhere. If we check him here, his king comes back up. Maybe we could take this, but that does not work. So this might be a possible move. We could check him here. We can go here, queen block. We check him here. King comes up, and we take this bishop. Doesn't that look promising? Okay, so then let's consider, what's wrong with this idea. So this queen check here idea. Okay, and then take the bishop. Well, after we take the bishop, he might have something like rook lift. Then now what? Now if we check him here, we takes our bishop, and we're back to square one. We gain a bishop, he gets our bishop. If we check with the rook, he still takes this, and our queen is still under attack. So that doesn't look very promising. Of course, this looks really nice and all, but it doesn't really add up to much. So what else do we have? Well, if his queen comes down, maybe we could try, well, let's look at checks, capture, and threats. None of the checks work. None of the checks work. Captures, none of these captures make any sense. Now let's look at threats, right? So we're in the right spot right now. Our queen is over here on h4. The problem is if we do not think he's going to take it for free because we're pinned. Right, we're pinned over here. So what can we do? Well, we can maybe go like rook e4, right? Because protect the queen, attack the queen. And this actually looks pretty promising from my perspective because his bishop block doesn't work. We just take it. He takes our queen, we take, and now we have the same issue as before. Our opponent has the same issue as before. Rook attack, rook attack. So that looks like a pretty promising move, and there doesn't seem to be any counterplay. So that looks about right. And now if the queen goes anywhere else, it seems he's lost. So this I'm going to finalize as my solution, and let's see if it's correct, all right? But before we do that, there was a small thing I noticed that maybe perhaps after going here, he can check us, maybe sacrifice over here, but it doesn't seem like it adds to anything, so I'm just going to dismiss that thought. So let's see if we're right. I'm going to go here. This is my candidate move. Okay, as we expected, the queen comes down to g4. Okay, queen g4. We're going to go rook lift because nothing else works. Takes, and that's the tactic. All right. It seems that our calculations were all correct. And now what we do is, if, for example, let's say we have any doubts during the position or in the previous, previous moves that we had doubts of, like let's say hypothetically we thought that, after we can just turn the engine on and let's say, why didn't this move work is my question, right? Why didn't this move work? Why couldn't I, I was thinking about it for a considerable amount of time. So why didn't it work? Well, he plays what I expected. I play what I expected. And it's like, oh, he had this rook g6 idea, right? He has the rook g6 idea. Why didn't I see that? And why does this work? Well, because my queen's attacked, blah, blah, blah. Big problem, as I explained earlier. But now if let's say you didn't see it, you're like, oh, so that's why my move was wrong. Let's say I played a wrong move, right? Let's say I played this move. Now I look at the engine afterwards, and I'm like, okay, now I understand why I'm wrong, okay? And notice another thing we did during our tactic, when we were doing the tactic was, oh, sorry, I'm going way too far, is that I did not make a single move until after, I've been fully committed to my entire line, okay? I didn't play like, oh, let's just go here and see what he plays, That the important part is to sit on your hands is because in the real game, you will not have this opportunity to go back. Let's say I go here and my opponent finds some magical move that somehow like saves him. There's no way I can go back. So you need to start from this depth and go all the way through until you get to the very end. And once you're fully confident, you can play it out. And then if you're wrong, check with the engine. Understand why you're wrong. Otherwise, keep going. Okay, let's keep going into this position. Why don't we consider the position then? Let's consider our material. Well, it looks like, just from a glance, it looks like we're down material. Okay, that's pretty clear. We're down a piece. I mean, 1, 2, yeah, we're for sure down a material. And it looks like if we do not do anything next turn, we are just gonna get we're just gonna get blown to bits, right? That's a small issue, right? So from my intuition, just generally, From just the vibes of this position, we might be looking to try to take this knight, right? Because the knight's hanging. If we get rid of the knight, we sort of might be able to get away alive, but it's hard to say. Okay, so now what do? We look at checks, captures, and threats, right? That's literally the first thing you look at when you're in tactic mode. You're in the go kill mode. Okay, so let's look at checks. Well, none of these checks make any sense. Of course, right? You go check here. Maybe he takes. This might make a little sense with this trying to, fish the king out, but it doesn't really amount to anything. You can see that. So we just dismiss all the checks, and now we look at captures. Okay, so what captures do we have? Well, takes this, right? That's pretty much the one capture we're talking about. If we take the queen, knight takes, we're just down material, and that's not good. So let's look at this takes, right? Let's look at this take. I'm not going to play it right now because, so I'm going to take this, and then what does our opponent have? Well, he can't take this pawn. He doesn't have any checks here. So it looks like if he doesn't do anything, we're going to checkmate him pretty much back here. So in other words, he has only one type of idea, is to threaten us on the king side. So what does he have? Well, he could take like this. If he takes with any rook, we still sort of just checkmate him, right? And if he takes with this rook, he can't run away now because we have something like here, or what not. What other words is, actually, why don't we look into it? So he takes here, rook takes, we can check him down here, king comes up, check, king over, check, king up, check, king over, check, rook back. It looks like he slightly gets away with it a little bit, but let's consider it again, okay? Oh, now that I think about it, after takes, rook takes, maybe, that does not work. I was thinking something like takes, going here, checking here, king here. Okay, so that's a small problem, right? This might be a potential candidate move, right? Because after he takes, he frees up this square. Because what I was considering was after rook takes, we check him here, check, 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 checkmate, right? But that doesn't seem to be the case, right? Because there is this square open now if he takes with the rook. So why don't we consider what happens if he takes with the rook? So takes, checks, captures, and threats. It looks pretty obvious that we have to check him because if we take him here, we just lose immediately. So what is the idea? Now is usually the time I would shut up and actually think about it for a bit. But I'm trying to make some filler noise right now. So okay, so he takes, we check him here, king here, checks, king here, maybe something like check here, king goes over, check him here, king up, and yep, that wins. Okay, yeah, so I figured out the solution. So he takes here, rook takes, we check him here, check him here. Idea is to check him here, check him here. After we go, we check him back here. All right, there's a lot of noise going on. So the king has two options, right? It can go here or it can go here. Obviously, if he goes here, we take this and we just blow him up. But if he goes here, we check him here first. Now he has to go here. We take like this, and we blow him up anyway, right? He goes here, like we can, I don't know, like check him again, king up, check him again. It gets messy for him. So that doesn't seem to be the case. We take here, queen takes, rook takes, and we're perfectly fine. So this looks like a pretty simple tactic, actually. We take the knight, and it seems like we can get away with it. So let's take here. He takes here. Of course, we're going to check him back here, check him here. And now the key move is to go queen here. Okay, so now he's going to move his king all the way up. And what's the idea? This doesn't work. When you start playing the moves out, you might have a little bit of doubts. Like a little doubt. Oh, why didn't I see this move earlier? So a move that I completely missed earlier is this f5 idea, right? And I'm now considering it and thinking, does f5 actually make any sense? And it doesn't really look like it makes any sense because after takes, I have no more checks. So I'm just going to continue with my plan. And it looks like he's pretty much dead. He's pretty much dead because let's say he goes something like here, I just take and I just win his piece back. And if he goes here, I still just take this, right? Yeah, I just take this and he has nothing, right? He could take this, but I'm gonna maybe, oh, sorry. I'm gonna go here. Actually, I did not see this line. Maybe I should have looked a little deeper. Yeah, I was not sure. I was pretty sure that after rook here, I just win, but he does have a little funny trick at the end, but it still loses at the end of the day. See, that's one oversight I made, and you should not be making these oversights over the board. This oversight was that can I actually take this rook after all the work I've done, right? I made that oversight, but now that you think about it, it shouldn't be, you shouldn't be making these mistakes. Okay, that was a little oversight. Anyway, so this was sort of like my thought process, how I do tactics. I just did two for the sake of time, just for an example. But if that, if that helped, cool. If that didn't help, then do it your way. Yep. I mean, there's no right way. This is just the way I've been very used to doing tactics, the easiest way to learn. And hypothetically, let's say I played um, a wrong move, right? So let's say I take this knight, he goes here, check, 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 and I don't know, I check him here or something. I play a wrong move, right? And the tactic says, oh, you're wrong, minus 35,000 points, right? And I'm very sad. And the first thing you do after you get a tactic wrong is you try again. You retry it without looking at the solution, without doing anything wrong from the very beginning, and you just try again. Okay, try that second candidate move you had, the other move you were considering. If that doesn't work, try and try again, right? Just keep trying until you accidentally guess the right move. And then you can finally look at the solution, explain why, and then what you do is you look at the engine and look at every move you tried before you got to the right move and ask the engine, why is this wrong? Why is this wrong? Why is this wrong? Okay? Does that make any sense? Right? So that's the whole idea. That's how I do tactics. Hopefully that helped. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.